Good evening, everyone. Mike Palmer from Know Your Rights Group and Success Coaching International with another big update for you all tonight. So the mainstream media keeps talking all about these Epstein files, but many people keep asking the same question: what's actually happening as a result? We see more people being named, we see more graphic images and descriptions of what these complete sickos have been up to, but nothing actually seems to be happening as a result, despite even now the mainstream media talking about it. So the obvious question is, why not? Is it maybe all just a big distraction? Well, as always, I don't have a crystal ball, so I don't have a definitive answer for you. But I can tell you this: I would dare say that thousands, if not tens of thousands of people would have either read about or spoken about the Epstein files at some point, either today or at the very least in the last week. But I wonder how many people have either seen or spoken about the article that came out in the mainstream media today linking COVID jabs with blood clots. Yes, you heard it correctly. The mainstream media are finally reporting on it. So, for those of you who've been following us since back in the COVID days, I urge you go and read this article and keep a copy. And I'll explain why in a moment. So this is what it says: Australian scientists may have found the reason why COVID vaccine caused serious blood clots. The cause of rare blood clots in a COVID-19 vaccine that killed 8 people in Australia may have been found in a new study by local researchers. The AstraZeneca vaccine was one of the 2 primarily used in Australia during the early stages of the pandemic, but caused blood clots in about 2 to 3 people out of every 100,000 who received it. The condition was called a vaccine-induced immune thrombocytopenia and thrombosis, 173 confirmed or probable cases of which caused by the vaccine were recorded. In many cases, the symptoms were minor and people made a quick recovery. However, other cases were far more serious and, in 8 instances, fatal. A team of researchers led by Australian scientists at Flinders University in Adelaide found that in some people, the immune system can confuse a normal adenovirus protein, something used in the AstraZeneca vaccine, for a human blood protein called platelet factor 4. PF4. Their study was released in the latest edition of the New England Journal of Medicine. So not some backyard publication. The presence of PF4 causes the body to produce antibodies that trigger blood clotting, which can cause serious injury or death. Through linking the two, scientists believe they can now manufacture vaccines to avoid this rare symptom. Not eliminate it, just to avoid it. This was the missing link that explains how a normal immune response can, in very rare cases, become harmful. To minimise the risk, again, not to eliminate it, just to minimise the risk of the rare side effect, the Australian government recommended the AstraZeneca vaccine only be given to people over 60 years old. But this is because younger people have a higher risk of producing a stronger antibody response and developing severe blood clots. Despite this, many people below 60 years old received at least 1 dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine due to shortages of the Pfizer vaccine and the push to reach certain vaccination targets and lift lockdown restrictions during the pandemic. So it's all there, it's all admitted in black and white, just as we said way back during COVID. Now, whilst it's all good and well, okay, that they're not only admitting that the COVID jab did indeed cause deaths, as we said that it was, but they are now actually explaining why. Now, the issue is that when you combine that with the admission that they just made that people under 60 were given those jabs and died when they shouldn't have been, all because they were trying to reach some magical, mystical targets, that sounds like a real potential for a compensation claim, at least to me. So, let's quickly just take a step back in time for just one moment, and let's go back to the 22nd of July 2021. Now, I'm sure any of our long-term viewers who've been watching our video updates since way back in the COVID days would remember that each week I would read out the weekly vaccine safety reports from the TGA, and I explained to people the sheer number of adverse reactions that were being reported. So I wanted to go back to this particular date specifically and just share a few facts and figures about what was being reported on that day. So as you can see, it's the Australian government, the COVID vaccine weekly safety report for that 22nd of July 2021. So here's what it says. Summary. Over the last week, 4 additional cases of blood clots with low blood platelets have been assessed as thrombosis with thrombocytopenia syndrome, TTS, likely to be linked to the AstraZeneca vaccine. So they were admitting this back in 21. But catch this. This is in 1 week's report. And they say 8 people died. Okay. 2 people... Sadly, 2 people with confirmed TTS following the first dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine died in the last week. Now, how many weeks were these rolled out for? And 2 died in 1 week. One was a 44-year-old man from Tasmania, and the other was a 48-year-old woman from Victoria, well below the 60-year-old threshold that should not have been getting those AstraZeneca vaccines. Gathering reports on adverse events following immunisation, AEFI. In the week of 12th to 18th of July 2021, we received 1,177 AEFI reports for COVID-19 vaccines. Nearly 1,200 reports of adverse reactions in just 1 week. Large-scale vaccination means that coincidentally, some people will experience a new illness or die shortly after vaccination. They were telling people right there, and people still lined up to get jabs and second doses and third doses and boosters and all the rest of it. The TGA has received and reviewed 399 reports of deaths in people who have recently been vaccinated. And there's the total adverse event reports to the 18th of July, 41,406 reported adverse reactions. Now, of course, that never included the number that were never reported, never formally reported, and that's how many adverse reactions there were back then during COVID. Okay, now the reason I'm bringing this up now is that I want to make sure, because something is clearly brewing, okay, I want to make sure that people keep that at the top of their minds, okay, whenever they roll out whatever it is that's, going to be next, monkeypox or Nipah or whatever else it is they decide to roll out and then rush some new vaccine straight to market. Please don't ever forget what happened and what they put us through during COVID. And most of all, remember, please, that it was never, ever about your health. It was only ever about control. And no one was more controlling anywhere in the entire world than good old Dictator Dan, whose life just seems to be slipping away from bad to even worse. First off, as I'm sure you're all aware, poor old Dan suffered a medical incident recently that left him in a bad way, and as a result of that, he missed the original deadline to file his defence in the Bike Boy case back on the 19th of December last year. But, wouldn't you know it, the courts, the very same courts that routinely throw out defences for even the most minor issue, kindly gave Dan an almost 2-month extension until the 10th of February. And amazingly, he just scraped in with, as I understand it, about half an hour to spare. So if you haven't heard this yet, this is the article, and here's what it says. Dan Andrews narrowly beats court deadline to file his defence, as he is sued for defamation by cyclist involved in crash with ex-Premier's car. Dan Andrews has filed his defence against the legal action by the teenage cyclist seriously injured in a crash with the ex-Victorian Premier's car. Andrews managed to file his defence to the Federal Court of Australia just before the deadline, which was the close of business on Tuesday. He had previously been given a deadline of December 19, but was granted an extension due to his medical problems. A hearing scheduled for Tuesday was also adjourned until next month, with the hearing expected to be live streamed. Now, this raises some very interesting points. First and foremost, that extension of time to file is strange enough in and of itself because, of course, Daniel Andrews is legally represented. And now, sure, if he was representing himself, you could certainly understand why the court would grant such an extension. But given that his defence was due to be filed on the 19th of December, and he wasn't actually admitted to hospital until just a few days before Christmas, you would expect that that defence would have been well and truly prepared by then. So why wasn't it filed? But if that wasn't strange enough, what's the go with the live streaming of the next hearing? Now, as many of our long-term viewers would know, people who've been to our events would realise that I have spent more time in court over the past 20 years or so than most people out there. And one of the first things that the courts tell you is that you cannot record the proceeding in any way or share or transmit it to anyone else at all. So again, why the huge backflip in this particular case to the point of actually live streaming it? It certainly seems very strange, but as always, time will tell. But sadly for good old Dan, the more that time marches on, the more trouble he seems to find himself in, because now the mainstream media are reporting on his alleged connection to a massive money laundering program. Now, if you miss this and you're in Victoria or you know anyone in Victoria, you are certainly going to want to read it and get them to read it as well. So here is what it says. Dan Andrews is embroiled in a new money laundering Chinese visa row over thousands of golden tickets for immigrant tycoons. Former Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews' government backed thousands of golden ticket visas via a program allegedly abused for money laundering. It can be revealed the Victorian government sponsored more visas to Chinese tycoons through the significant investor visa program than any other state. New figures reveal the Victorian government nominated a total of 5,277 magnates, mostly Chinese migrants, on the visa known as Australia's Golden Ticket. The Andrews administration backed 3,445 visas between 2014 and 2018 via the Fraud Prone program, which was axed by the federal government last year after damning reviews. Department of Home Affairs data reveals Victoria's golden tickets dwarfed the rest of the nation's states and territories, which only signed off a combined 4,920 visas. That's all the states combined, minus Victoria. Applicants were required to contribute at least $5 million into complying high-growth Australian assets for at least 4 years. These investments including putting at least $1.5 million into small cap companies listed on the Australian Stock Exchange. And I wonder who had shares in those. The program was viewed as a gateway to permanent residency, with initial visa application costs for the main applicant coming in at $14,670. Wow. If a person didn't speak English, they needed to pay an extra charge to secure their visa. State governments were responsible for nominating candidates who would then be processed and approved by the Department of Home Affairs. Andrews pressed on with the scheme despite a 2016 Productivity Commission review finding the program was prone to fraud. The review found evidence of rorting and money laundering, while also highlighting investments were of little economic benefit. Well, little benefit to the state, probably lots of benefit to them. It also warned the visa attracted individuals perceived to have less business acumen before finally recommending the program's termination. However, the Victorian government promoted the visa for years after the warnings, and it was central in multiple trips Andrews made to China. The golden ticket jackpot coincided with Andrews giving the 2018 Belt and Road Initiative deal in Victoria the green light. The controversial deal was ripped up by the federal government in 2021 due to national security concerns. The program, which was launched in 2012, was found to offer minimal economic benefit, and in some cases it was exploited for money laundering. This is the stuff that Dan's been embroiled in. It's been reported Victorian visa recipients pledged $8.1 billion in investments to the state's economy, but it's unclear where the money was spent. So, not good news for Dan getting roped into things like that. So, people wonder why there's a housing and cost of living crisis, especially in Victoria, when that kind of thing is going on. Now, I've said it already a few times this year, and I'm going to keep putting it out there, hoping and praying at every opportunity that this year can finally be the year of accountability and justice for all. And let's hope that that also extends to Andrew's successor, of course, Jacinta Allen, who's now well and truly caught up in the $15 billion CFMEU scandal. Now, if you haven't heard about that, you want to check this out. Now, I've just taken the top portion. It's quite a long, quite a detailed article, but this should give you the gist of what's been going on in Victoria. So it is entitled, Victorian Government Knew of Union Corruption and Did Nothing, Despite $15 Billion Impact, Report Alleges. A bombshell report that includes allegations the Victorian Labor government turned a blind eye to union corruption and cost taxpayers billions has been referred to police. The Construction, Forestry and Maritime Employees Union Administrator Mark Irving on Wednesday released the full report to authorities after suggesting it had initially been redacted to remove allegations that could damage Victoria's Labor government. Irving said Barrister Geoffrey Watson's final report into the Militant Construction Union's Victoria branch contained serious allegations of criminal and improper conduct. These matters have not been determined by a court or tested through criminal proceedings, Irving said in a statement. For that reason, the report will be referred to the AFP, Victoria Police, the Fair Work Commission and other relevant law enforcement agencies and regulators. Irving said the report had been released so authorities could take whatever enforcement action they consider appropriate as the CFMEU entered a new chapter. The full findings emerged amid calls for Irving's sacking after allegations the report was redacted to remove findings that suggested the state government cowed to the CFMEU. Entire chapters were ditched after reporting the government had a close relationship with the CFMEU and did nothing when union officials allegedly worked with organised crime figures at major projects. The report claimed the CFMEU's actions had increased costs, estimating it cost Victorian taxpayers upwards of $15 billion. I mean, that is insane. I mean, just stop and think about how many machete bins the government could have purchased with that $15 billion to make us all safer. Okay, but seriously, all right, it's bad enough, okay, that the $15 billion is allegedly, passed on to criminals and criminal organisations. But what's even more criminal, if that's even possible, is what it could have actually been used for to help genuinely struggling Victorians. Okay, if ever there was a reason for people to rise up and take to the streets and demand change, then this certainly has to be high on that list. For the Victorian Labor government to turn a blind eye to the criminal wastage of $15 billion is, in and of itself, in my opinion, absolutely criminal and something must be done about it. Now, speaking of wasting money, did you hear how much the New South Wales government made from speed and red light cameras just last year, all the while the road toll continued to increase? Well, if you missed that article, have a look at this, and I can assure you it's similar figures in all the other states as well. Speed and red light camera revenue explodes by $39 million in New South Wales. Revenue from red light and speed cameras has exploded across New South Wales, with 7 news revealing the locations where drivers have been caught out in droves. The state government raked in a staggering $308 million. That's just one state. From traffic cameras last year, a jump of more than $39 million compared to the previous year. But remember, cameras cause people to slow down, so I'm not sure why they made more money. Sydney's highest grossing red light camera is located northbound on Stacey Street in Bankstown, making more than $3 million last year alone. One camera. As I've said before, if that many people are doing the wrong thing, then clearly the government's definition of wrong is wrong. Underground tunnels are raking in the most from speeding offences, with cameras in the Rozelle interchange making more than $4 million. The Cross City and North Connects tunnels aren't far behind. More than 700,000 speeding offences. Again, if 700,000 people are speeding, as in exceeding the speed limit, then that is as crystal clear and obvious as you can possibly get that the speed limit is set too low. If that many people are going above it, the issue is not the people, it's the limit. I don't know how to make this any clearer. And almost 200,000 red light violations were recorded across the state in 2025. Again, if 200,000 people are going through a red light, then clearly there's something wrong with the sequencing of the amber light to red, okay? Because 200,000 people can't be getting it wrong. However, critics have pointed out that both the road toll and the camera revenue continue to rise. The road toll continues to rise, as does revenue from these cameras, and both need to be reduced, said Matt Cross, chairman of the opposition's Waste Watch Committee. The government says the money is being spent on road safety initiatives as it desperately tries to drive the road toll down. Well, it's clearly not doing a very good job. Okay? Therein lies the problem. The statistics are there. I mean, look, I don't know. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm dumb. Maybe I'm missing something. But the government and the police consistently tell us that speed cameras save lives. And yet, as was clearly admitted in that article, there's more cameras than ever before. Yet the road toll, the death toll on the road, continues to increase. Again, the same government and same police, as I just mentioned, they claim that speed cameras cause people to slow down. So again, if that were true, quite simply, logic dictates that the revenue from those cameras would decrease year on year, not increase. So clearly someone somewhere is telling lies. And the problem is that it's Aussie motorists that are paying the price. As I've explained more times than I can count, the only way we're going to get the government to stop rolling out more of these insidious cameras that do absolutely nothing to help the road toll and get them to actually look at the true causes of road trauma and to actually implement genuine road safety, techniques, okay? The only way we're going to do that is when we stop that $2 billion a year from continually rolling into the government coffers. And of course, the best way to do that is to follow that tried, tested and proven 3-step process from chapter 3 of that Aussie Speeding Fines book. Again, these guys have been around for 19 years now, so you know the information, you know the strategies work, okay? So, as always, you'll find a link in the description, you'll find a link in the comments. Grab your copy now before you get a fine. Save your money, save your license, save your demerit points, and save your insurance premiums as well. Now, conversely, it appears as though our friends and family across the ditch in New Zealand have some somewhat different ways of handling these cameras. So this is a story out of New Zealand where, as you'll see, they take a somewhat different approach. Surge in vandalism as North Auckland speed cameras targeted. Authorities are raising alarms over a recent spike in infrastructure sabotage following the deliberate targeting of speed cameras recently in North Auckland and around other New Zealand regions. In the latest incident, a new average speed camera on Matakana Road was vandalised, mirroring a previous attack where a nearby device was completely chopped down. Wakakatahi NZTA confirmed the Matakana Road damage, but noted that technology remained operational. New Zealand Transport Agency spokesperson acknowledged vandalism to the camera, but said the act did not stop the camera from working. Our camera supplier has been dispatched to clean the graffiti and repair the shields. Intentional vandalism of NZTA property is a criminal offence, and the action has been reported to New Zealand Police. Police are investigating the string of vigilante acts, warning that such destruction compromises public safety and costs taxpayers millions in repairs. Investigation into the Matakana and other incidents remain ongoing. Well, again, if it's just a little bit of graffiti, surely that can't cost millions to get that scrubbed off now. And according to them, it's all still working fine. So, what's the issue? But again, I do want to make it clear that we do not in any way, shape or form, condone that kind of behaviour. But we do once again ask the very simple question. And that is simply this. What is it, about these particular objects, speed cameras in particular, that causes otherwise normal, everyday, law-abiding people to take such extreme action? To graffiti them or cut them down or set them alight or all these sorts of things. I mean, clearly people are very upset with them. And after seeing those figures from New South Wales and just how much money they keep raking in for the government, all while the road toll continues to rise, you can sort of understand why. But again, don't take it out on the camera. It's only going to cost you more money in the end somehow, but just challenge your fines correctly, as I said before, using that tried, tested and proven 3-step process from that Aussie speeding fines book. As I've said more times than I can possibly count, these cameras have nothing to do with road safety, they're all about the money. And speaking of money, we spoke a lot last year about this consistent push towards a cashless society. We spoke about the closing down of endless bank branches, the removal of many ATMs, and there has thankfully been a lot of pushback against that, with more and more people choosing to use cash. Now, one of the primary reasons that we keep telling people to use cash is because if you don't keep cash on hand and you don't use cash, then when the next inevitable crash, hack or outage occurs, you're going to be stuck, which is exactly what tens of thousands of people found out earlier this week when the entire Optus network went down. So again, if you're with Optus or you know anyone who was with Optus, you might be aware of this. Again, it has happened to all of the telcos. It's not just an Optus issue. It's a modern technology issue that people need to be aware of. So this is the particular article. Optus outage leaves 40,000 people without mobile service. Thousands of people are still without mobile service following a massive Optus outage on Monday. At the peak of the outage, about 120,000 customers using the telco were seeing no service or SOS on their phones. As of Tuesday morning, Optus said 40,000 customers may still be affected by the software issue. Customers are still able to make emergency calls to 000. Well, that's good to know. The telco advised people experiencing the issue to restart their phones, which should restore the service immediately. Doesn't guarantee it though. Optus is continuing to see a reduction in the number of mobile customers impacted by a software issue, a spokesperson said. The majority of customers have already restored services after restarting their phones. We again sincerely apologise to customers. Okay, yeah, very, very useful when you can't access anything. Because remember, of course, right, no mobile service, okay, means you can't access your internet banking, you can't use any cards that are stored on your phone, and any retailers that use the Optus system to process their payments are unable to take any online payments. They, of course, can only take cash, okay? So again, this is the perfect time to remind everyone about Jason Bryce's petition. That's the one to legislate a formal cash and banking guarantee in this country and force all shops to accept cash. So again, if you haven't added your signature to that, please do so. Again, you'll find a link going up in the comments, or again, just look online for a petition to legislate formal cash and banking guarantee in Australia, and that will pop right up. Now, of course, if you also haven't already done so, please make sure that you join our Call Out Cashless Businesses Facebook group. Very, very important that we keep naming and shaming those businesses that refuse to accept cash so people know where to direct their hard-earned money and where to stay away from. And of course, be sure to join the sister group to that, the Cash is King discussion group, which is the perfect place to share these sorts of articles and ideas around with people so that people understand the real dangers of this constant cashless push. All right, and one final point before I wind up tonight while we're on the subject of cash and banking. If anybody missed Tuesday night's radio show, then you will have missed the announcement that we've just released this year's webinar series. And in addition to the 7 webinars that we ran last year, we are adding in one brand new webinar this year, which is, of course, going to be all about the banking fraud, how to discharge unsecured loans, as well as bills of exchange. It was something we received a bunch of queries about, so it is something we're integrating into this year's series. So if you have been waiting for us to announce our webinars for this year, you will be able to find them right now. They are on the webinars tab, which you'll find directly under the seminars tab, of course, on the knowyourrightsgroup.com.au website. Now, again, given that all bar one of our webinars completely sold out last year, I do urge everyone to get in sooner rather than later to secure your spot, especially if you want one of those limited number of VIP spots, which all well and truly sold out for every event last year. And just finally, a very quick reminder, obviously I announced the fact that we have finally made last year's webinars available on USB, and after announcing that just last Thursday, we now have only 6 packs left. That's it. All the others are already gone. Now, unfortunately, as I'm sure many of you are aware, China is just heading into their holiday period with the Chinese New Year next week. So that means basically everyone just shuts down over there until early to mid-March. So once these current lot of USB drives are gone, there won't be any more until the end of March at the earliest. So again, just use the link under the seminars tab. You'll find it in the description to the video as well if you want to secure one of those last remaining webinar USB packs. All right, as always, to finish off with a number of different memes to get people thinking about what's going on at the moment. There's obviously been a lot of talk about the Epstein files, and it seems like this is all very new for some people, and we of course have known about them for a long time. We've been talking to people about them, but as you can see, here's the veteran conspiracy theorist as opposed to the normies as they are reading through the Epstein files. Now, obviously, we've been talking about the truth that's come out about the Clot shot, so I've got a couple of memes in relation to that. So, as we see there, the cow says moo, the duck says quack, and what about the sheep? They say, yes, I got my COVID vaccine. So, there you go. And on a similar vein, and this should hopefully bring lots of confidence and empowerment to many people, we're no longer going to be known as the unvaxxed. We will now be referred to as the purebloods. Okay, big distinction, and hopefully the majority of you watching this video are indeed still purebloods as we head into 2026. Again, along the same sort of lines, again, the truth is the truth, no matter how you slice it or dice it. So, as it says, call us anti-vaxxers, COVIDiots, conspiracy theorists. It really doesn't matter. You're mocking we the people who've correctly predicted every stage of this scam with 100% success rate. Okay? We said that the jabs were going to cause deaths. We said that the jabs were going to cause adverse reactions. We said that the jabs hadn't had any long-term testing. And we're seeing all of these things all come out in the mainstream media now, years after the fact, of course, but at least the truth is being exposed. And speaking of the truth, this is the final one that I will leave you with tonight. And again, hopefully the majority of you watching this can relate. So it says, the truth is, you have some crazy conspiracy theory friends trying harder to save your life than any medical professional or government entity ever has. And as I said, I'm sure many of you can relate to that. So I'm going to leave things there for tonight. As always, I do urge you to make use of all the resources that are available to you to please get informed, get fired up, and get proactive. We do need that again this year more than ever before. These videos, of course, are completely free to watch. You find them under the Reels tab on our Facebook page, or of course on our YouTube and BitChute channels. Don't forget to subscribe and sign up for notifications on those. There's plenty of free information on our website and the other websites that we recommend. Our radio shows, of course, completely free to listen to every Tuesday night between 8 and 10 p.m. There's no live show this coming Tuesday, but we will be replaying this week's show in case anybody missed that. And of course, if you want to go above and beyond what we cover on the radio shows and in these videos, we do urge you to please grab a copy of our book, The Essential Step-by-Step Manual for Understanding and Exercising Your Rights. That Aussie Speeding Fines book for successfully challenging all manner of unjust and unlawful fines. And we know a lot of people are genuinely struggling financially now. So please stop throwing good money after bad at your unsecured loans, your credit cards, your personal loans. They can be easily written off, discharged just by using their 4-step process. So you can get these all individually. There's links in the description. You can, of course, get them all together as part of the combo pack. You do get that tote bag included as a little bonus. No extra charge for that. Don't forget, we do have our caps to keep your head protected. People see the logo, they come up, they have a chat. It is a great way to meet like-minded people. As I mentioned before, we do have 6 sets of our webinar series on USB. As I said, they do come in these handy packs, so click the link to get those. And of course, there are no live in-person events this year other than, of course, the bootcamp event. So if you want a copy of one of our previous 2.5-day live events, this is the only way to access that information now, is via our home study course. It's a complete recording of those events over 17 DVDs, which you can pause, rewind, fast forward in the comfort of your own home and, of course, at your own pace. So I'm going to leave things there. I hope you all have a fantastic weekend, and we'll be back next Thursday with the next live video update. Until then, take care.